Okay. We're back and on the next recording because I thought I'd messed up and hadn't been doing any sound, so I had to stop the other one and double check that I'd actually been recording my voice. So when we finished off in the last video, which will probably be part 1, we'd set up our basics for this. We just set up our early warning radar network down here, and we're going to go back and start doing parts of the dispatcher. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up our engage radiuses, our zones for caps and things like that. So I don't actually need the documentation for most of this, I've done it enough, but I've got it here so that I can explain things as I need to. So we're going to come here, I'm going to go, let's create our settings and zones for dispatcher. You're going to have to forgive for that because it's 7 o'clock at night and I've got some friends who want my attention while I'm doing this. Red A to A disp. So in here we're going to go set border zone, and we're going to leave it like this. The reason we're leaving it like this is because we don't actually have a zone yet, so we need to come up and create that zone. So this is going to be red AS space, and it's going to equal a zone polygon new, and you'll notice that we need a zone name and a zone group unless we send it an array. So the zone name's going to be a string, we're going to call it red airspace, and the zone group here we're going to do group find by name. I believe we called it red AS, but we're just going to come in here and check, and yes, red AS. So we want this to match exactly. And somehow we got an extra bracket there. So if we expand this out, what we've done here is create our airspace zone. So now we want to create the first cap zone. So this is going to be cap 1 equals zone polygon new red cap 1 element group find by name, and this is going to be red cap 1, I believe we called it. Yep. And we're just going to copy this. We're not going to do that, we're going to copy that, and we're going to go red cap 2, red cap 2, and red cap 2. Set up our cap 1, set up our cap 2, and then down here we're going to change this border zone to read red airspace. That gives us our border. We're going to go red A to A disp set engage radius. So this is a radius that things will engage when executing a cap or anything like that. These guys are going to engage anything within 50 nautical miles of them. So we're going to go utils again, nautical miles to meters, and we're going to say 50. Red air to air dispatch, and if we come back down here we can look at some other stuff. So which one of these, so if we come down to set, one of these will be disengage radius. So this is going to be util dot, I believe, I'm just going to leave this like this for a moment. I do remember. Actually, we're not gonna do this one because these guys are gonna be fairly far from their home base, so we'll just leave it as default. Red just seeing if. Let's have a look. Is there anything else we want? We've done our border zone. We're going to set our. We're going to set these. These are. We're going to set our default damage thing. This is going to be 0.04, which means basically if one of the units has been lost, if it's at 40% of its original strength, basically, or health. Set default fuel threshold, because these guys have got a bit to go, it's going to be 0.4 as well. Set default tanker, we should have one in here. So, and you might be, but Rob, we don't have a tanker yet. Exactly, so we're going to have to go add one. So we're going to do that. We are going to say that there is already a tanker up and anchored, running basically down along here. So we're going to go like this. And for the purpose of this, we're going to come down to, we'll see what Iran's got for tankers. So we're going to come down to, not transport. Iran doesn't actually seem to have an air-to-air refueler. That's interesting. But we know Iran brought some, basically KC-30, so we'll do this. I'm going to come to refueling, and just double check that we don't have what we want in Iran. We come back to Iran. Well, apparently we actually did have refueling, and we did have that, so okay. This is going to be Shell 1-1 for these guys. Shell's going to be starting at 26,000 feet as it comes in. And it's going to come around to, so we're going to say it's taken off from Shiaz and it's en route. It's going to come until it's over the Jeffrett beacon here, and it's going to anchor, and it's going to run a 50 nautical mile leg just here, and then eventually it's going to return home and land. Now, what do we do for this? Just like with the, oops. So we need to tell display point to land again. So, oh, could you stop doing that? Thank you. So just like with the other one, we want to set this up to run its systems. To basically run what it needs to here. So when it gets here, it's going to perform an en route task. Perform a task. It's going to orbit. And I shall be back again in a moment. So, yes, we are going to need to set up this. Now, obviously it's not going to be tanking up at 26,000 feet. It's going to drop to 22. And here's where we run into the problem. We need the speeds. And we need them in something we can actually make sense of, because DCS, this is that speed over the ground, which is all great and the like, but it's a pain in the ass because we need it for ground speed. So what we want is, there's a good old calculator, aviation calculator. here. And this is good because it allows you to do a couple of quick calculations without having to do the math. Which can be a pain in the ass. So we know we're going to be at 22,000 feet. And we want a calibrated airspeed of about 280 knots. So this is going to tell us that our true airspeed is going to be 272 knots over the ground. 386 knots over the ground. So we stick that in there. That's just going to mean that he's doing his back and forth thing. His stop condition's going to be after 6 hours. So he'll stay up tanking either until he runs out of fuel or 6 hours. He's going to be a bit random on his thing. And the other thing we want to do is over here, we want to update his data here. So this is going to be and he's going to be operating on 66 Yankee. This gives us shells. The reason we're not putting an escort on him is because the cap's basically going to be his escort. As I was saying, the cap is going to be his escort, so that's why we're not going to bother with that. But we do need this, and we're actually going to change this to R shell 11. So we're going to come back here now. Rather than just dump a group find by name down here, we'll probably actually want to set up some score stuff for him later. So we're going to go red tanker equals group find by name red shell 11, just like red AWAC equals group find by name. And again, we're going to find this one. We're going to grab this and we're going to put it in here. And then rather than tanker name here, we're just going to do this. And it's automatically got that reference and everything like that. Set default the default group, and we're going to tell that that's 2. And we're going to set up our default landing. So default landing is going to be at the runway. It just means they'll land and they won't taxi to shut down. The reason we do this is so that they don't get bugged. And the default takeoff is going to be from the runway as well. So the other thing here is by doing this we can still actually do a strike package if we want that can go in and destroy the runway bases, for example, if we wanted to. Which is going to be important. They will override this default for the group we can't have coming up and out of Kasab here when we get to it. I think that's everything I want for the moment for this. So we can actually start looking at the next section of what we want to do for all of this. Which is, we've set our borders, we've set up our we want to start setting up our squadrons. So, now that we've got all the back end in place, we want to start giving it all the information it needs to be able to, well, make the squadrons and have them spawn and do their things. So, how do we do this? Okay, so if we look at the Moose documentation here, you'll notice it's telling you that you need to create a squadron. There's a couple of things here that we need to do. We'll look at them over here. So, red air-to-air dispatcher. And then we're going to do squadron. It helps if I remember. Add squadron, is it? Or create? Or set squadron. Let's go have a quick look for a minute. Set squadron. That's why I'm messing up. Set squadron. And we do this one here. And you'll notice it wants a squadron name, an airbase name, a template prefix, and a resource count. So the squadron name can be anything, so we'll start with the actual Shiraz squadron that we want to make here. So I'm going to call this is going to be our Western Defence Squadron. For the airbase name, what we want here is airbases dot. I could have sworn it was airbase. Okay, it's airbase, not airbases. Airbase dot Persian Gulf dot, and then we want to find the base we want. So in this case, it was Shiraz. And all this is doing is converting a string. It's actually just putting the string there that we need, but it's already stored. Next comes this part, our template prefixes, which we don't have any yet. So we're going to have to go make these. So let's get going on that. So template prefixes are the templates that it's going to use to make the squadrons. And to do this, we're going to create a bunch of units up here in this far right corner that are late activated. We're going to set these guys to cap. And we're going to come down, and the first set we're going to make is an F-14 group. It's going to always be just this one unit. We don't want anything more than that, and this is going to be Run F-14 template. And we're going to come over here and we're going to give it its cap loadout. We don't want it to have Phoenixes. We're going to give it a lot of AIM-297 and the likes though. So we give it this. The reason we're not giving it Phoenixes is because Iran doesn't have a lot of them, even their homegrown ones. So we're just gonna make certain it's set up how we want it here. It's got its bags, all that fun stuff, and we're gonna set it late activated. And we're gonna copy this. We're gonna come in here and we're gonna go like this. So there's our first template. Next we're going to take that same template, we're just going to paste it, and we're going to change it. We're going to give these guys some MiG-29s, and again we're going to work out what we want it carrying. In this case, it's going to be carrying this loadout here, so 4, I believe these are Archers. I can't remember what the 27s are. These 27s might be Archers, I can't remember. And a fuel tank. We're going to give it our, it's going to be in the sand blue. And we're going to change this name to Iran MiG-29A template. We're going to change the skill on these guys to random. And random. Just means that we get a wide variety. Then the other thing we're going to do is we can actually set up some little bits and pieces if we wanted to in here, but we're not going to for the moment. We're going to make certain slate activated. We're going to take this one. We're going to put that there. So that's telling it that this squadron here, this Western Defence Squadron, is made up out of F-14s and F-20 and MiG-29s. We need to give it a resource count. This is how many of these it has in total. So if we look here, if we come down to resource count, a number that specifies how many resources are in stock of the squadron. We don't want it to have infinite. We want the caps to be able to be whittled down and defeated. So we're going to say that these guys have got a total of 14 aircraft available to them. So there's our first squadron done. Kind of. So what we have to do now is we actually have to set this squadron's cap and zones and all that stuff up. So we're going to start doing that now. So we're going to go red A to A disp again. We're going to go set squadron, and you'll see we've got squadron cap. We also have this new one. Which I've got no idea what this new one's for. So we're not using it, we're going to use this one. We could also set up a racetrack cap. But for this we have to give it a actual coordinate. Which we might do for one of the other caps. This cap, however, we're just going to do this one. So we need the squadron name again. So this is going to be Western Defence Squadron. And I mean, we could technically save this value, so we could just type something small in. But who cares, right? Red. So this is going to be in red cap 1. So this squadron's going to patrol this cap zone here. We'll actually adjust this cap zone just a little bit. I'm just going to patrol this cap zone here. Now we need to give it some altitudes that it's allowed to do things at, so which is the altitude, so it's minimums, it's maximums, and it's speeds, and all that stuff. So the first thing we're going to do here is utils dot feet to meters, and we're going to tell it that we want it to basically the bottom of its patrol will be at 18,000 and the highest it'll go will be 32,000. So now we need its minimum speed. And for this we need to do utils dot knots to kilometers per hour, because I'm used to doing everything in knots. And not only that, this comes in handy, so I want these guys to be doing 400 knots calibrated actually 300 knots calibrated. Then we're going to do a rough height, so this is for the minimum and the maximum, so we're going to do from 1600, so 437, so that's going to be the lowest speed, and the maximum speed is going to be, I believe, we're at 3200. Won't be a calibrated airspeed of this. We want a Mach number here, so we want them to be doing things. It's going to be 409. So we may actually have to switch these numbers around. Yep. So we're going to go 409 and that, and then minimum engagement speed is going to be utils dot. So the minimum engagement speed is going to be 450 knots. Or actually, we'll go 400 knots. And then max is going to be 600 knots. Then their altimeter type, if we go and have a look here, at the, if you've set this up properly, you get all this type. You can set it to barometric or radio. We want barometric, so we're just going to go baro. So what we've just done is we've told it that this cap squadron will be flying our cap in red cap 1. It'll be at 1800, angles 18 to angles 32, and it'll go from this speed to this speed, and if it sees something it'll engage at these speeds, and they're barometric altitudes. So now we need to tell it the next part, which is set Squadron Intervals. So what this does is this allows us to set up its how often we want it to how many groups, all that type of things. We want up. We already know our default grouping is above, so we want Western Defense Squadron. So if we have a look here, cap limit is optional, but we want it there anyway. So these are the cap limits, the cap group. Our default grouping's 2. So our limit is going to be 2 groups from this squadron. Will be airborne at any time. Now the intervals are the time in seconds from when a new cap will be spawned. So our low interval, what we want here, is going to be 60 times 5. So the lowest interval will be 5 minutes. The highest interval will be 30. So this just gives us some variation between it, and I believe probability is still not used. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we're just going to go 1.0 for the moment. Now, I believe that is, from memory, all we'd actually need for everything there, given we've got the overheads already set. By default, actually no we don't. We don't have the altitude set, the overhead set. So the last one we're going to do is these ones. So we're going to do this one, which is its overhead, and we can also do its radio frequency, which allows, if we've got somebody on the thing, that'd change where they're talking and all that fun stuff, but we're just going to do the overhead. And what this means is how much, as it says here, the percentage of units dispatching command will allocate. So by default, if it detects one group, it'll send one group. If it detects two groups, it'll send two groups, etc. For this group, we're actually going to leave this as, we're actually going to set this to 1.5. So for every group, it'll try and send 1.5 groups. And this sets up our first one. So now we want to make certain that this is all actually running and not erroring before we go type more up. So how do we do that? Well, we come back here, we come into here, we want to clone this event here. We want to change the script file, however, to our workspace. So I'm actually going to cheat here for a second because it's quicker for me to get to where I need to go. To go like this, and then open, and then come up to here. And that's not where I want it, it's where I want it. And I'm just going to select the tutorial one that we've been working on. I'm going to hit OK, and you'll see it's got do script file moose and do script file tutorial. Alright, we're going to save. We're going to go flight. We're going to go fly mission. Now before we get any further, we need to bring up something so that we can actually find what we're after. So we are going to come up to our save game folder. We're going to find our DCS folder. We're going to come into logs. And if you do not have Glogger, I strongly recommend you get this program here, because this program will save you a lot of hassles. You basically want to drag and drop your DCS log into here, and you will get a log that updates as we go. Now I'm going to actually put this on my other monitor and share it as a window so that you can see it here. As we go in. So we're going to go start. And as you can see, it's just updated. And it's updated with a bunch of information. The part we're worried about isn't quite there yet. I'm going to go Game Master, but if you do not have anything that lets you do this, you can always go Pilot or the like. What you'd need to do is make certain that you can see all, so you know that everything's working properly. Then I'm going to go fly, and now here's the important part. Bang, we have an error. So if we're going to hit escape, because we don't want to continue, if we bring this back over and we hide this, you can see that we have an error here. So, and it's actually in line 4, so I messed up on line 4. We'll go have a look at that. We can see that moose loaded fine, and this tells us that moose loaded fine. But right here, so we have an error in line 4, it's telling us exactly what, and it's trying to concentrate a global last update. And it's saying that thing, and it's right. I messed up all the way back at the start. This should be last updated. So we're going to have to go fix that, because the script will not work if there's an error like that, because I do not have it in do comments. So we're going to go quit. Mission editor. Now the first thing you want to double check whenever you come back here is that this is correct down here. Then we're going to go save on this. And the next part we want to do is do here and here. So what this is telling it is I want it to do this section, and if it can't do it, then it will step over it. It also comes in handy for hiding bits and pieces. So, because of that, there's some things we want to move up and out of this area. So we're going to move these ones up and out to here. And we're going to make a section here called constants. And all a constant is a value that does not change over time. So these aren't changing over time. We'll never overwrite them. And here this group is going to be red AI cap code. And the reason we comment stuff is simply so that if somebody else comes along, they know what's going on. So we're going to actually change this. This is going to be main mission load. And we're just going to go open. We're going to find that. We're going to go like that. And we're just going to double check something in here. So we're going to enforce these. We're going to enforce all for the moment. We're going to labels dot only. We'll show how to force this to thing. We're going to enforce all of this. We're going to enforce birds. There's a percent. We don't want that high of a percentage. Want civ traffic to be low or off. For this one we could have it on low, but I prefer it just to be off. We're going to allow that. And this actually allows the red battle damage assessment to come up. The rest of it, well, I don't care what they run at the moment, so we go save flight. And we're going to go fly mission again. And once more, we're going to have our good old log where we can get to it and watch it as it's coming in, and we're going to look for any other errors. So we're going to come all the way back down, start. I'm going to go to Game Master again, and we have an error again. But this time it's on a different section. So we're going to quit again. I'm going to come back to the mission editor, and we're going to have a look at where Rob screwed up this time. So let's drag this across, log, and we can see it's here. So there is no group declared with the mission editor with the spawn template prefix thing. So apparently I messed up this, and I did. So I had the name wrong. We double checked that it's actually saved correctly this time. Come back here. So we wasn't even a scripting error. It was just that. We go file, fly, save it, fly mission. And again, we're gonna bring this up. We're gonna have it display here. Scroll down to here. Yeah, okay. Flight. And Moose is loaded in. It's all down. Everything seems to have loaded in properly. So we can see we have the stuff we started with. We also have the F-14s we told that we wanted waiting. I know it's pretty dark, but these guys are waiting. They're not taking off. They'll happily just sit here and wait. Now the problem of course is technically we're not going to have a cap flight up or anything like that for a minimum of 5 minutes. So how do we double check that our cap flight's working properly? I mean, we're not there, right? So we need to basically accelerate time, which is Control Z. We're just going to let this run through for a moment. I do not recommend running normally with this at high speed. DCS tends to get quirky with high speed. There's times where you basically just have to sit here in real time and run your mission and see if things work. But for the moment, it's fine. We've got our F-14 all nice and dark flying along. Of course, this will be a real interesting mission for anybody in an F-16 at this time of the morning, because they're not going to have form lights or anything like that at the moment. But hey, you want to fly a bird that's in early access, it's what happens. Especially with DCS. And of course the other problem is it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. But the fact that we don't have an error on the cap is always a good point. Though there could be the problem, there is the off chance that I forgot to tell it to start. I don't believe I had to tell it to start these days. Or do I? No, I don't need to tell it to start these days. It should have automatically started. So, obviously we run into the problem here that it could take forever for these guys to spawn up, because we've got everything set for our defaults. So we're actually going to quit. And we're going to come back and we're going to edit some stuff, because otherwise this could be a rather freaking long video, or on top of what is already a rather long 2-section video already, and the like. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create two values. We're going to call this run cat min equals 60 times 1. Run cat max equal 60 times 1. So we can now take these values, and rather than this set that we used here, we can put this one and this one. And what this means is we can adjust these as we need to go. And I need to pause.